What's up, YouTube? I'm out here in Malibu, California right now. It's pretty quiet. It's pretty gray. It's actually a really beautiful day today. So, I was listening to this podcast a little bit ago with this kid named Adam Taggart. He has a YouTube channel called Thoughtful Money. And he's kind of like, and he's an investor. You know, this kid went to Stanford School of Business. So he seems like a pretty smart kid. And he does a bunch of interviews with all different types of people. He does interviews with people who used to work for the Federal Reserve, people who are housing data analysts, you know, people who are forensic analysts, and they, you know, analyze pension funds in California and stuff like that. He does interviews with economists. He does interviews with people who manage money. And it's a great channel. It really is. It's very informative. And me being a truck driver, I really like to listen to those types of podcasts because to me, it's so fascinating to learn about how the interest rates impact the business cycle and the unemployment rate and orders throughout the globe. So in particular, I was listening to this podcast this morning. He was talking to this kid named nickgerli. He's a housing data analyst, and he gathers a bunch of information from the Census Bureau, from Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow, all the Federal Reserve. He takes all of that data and he incorporates it into a website that he's created, or an application, I guess, that he's created called the ReVenture app. And the topic of the discussion today was basically about how Texas and Florida in particular, he's seeing in the data that the housing inventory in those states in particular is really exploding. He had said that it doesn't seem like much, but in Florida in particular, on average, home prices are down year over year 2%. And that's on average. So obviously there's cities in Florida that are probably down 10, 15, maybe even 20%. You know, in previous podcasts, he actually creates examples of homes that he's found in, let's say, for example, in Tampa, you know, on the western coast. These kids, they bought houses in Tampa during the peak in 2022. You know, this is what everyone did, really. Everyone from California and Florida, you know, they sold their house for $1 million and then they go over to Tampa, or they go to Austin, Texas, or they go to Nashville, Tennessee, and they really drove up home prices, you know. So he was making an example in a previous podcast about how that's what happened in particular Tampa. And he shows an example where these kids, they bought a house for $600,000 roughly in 2022 in Tampa, and then the hurricane came, and you know, obviously the home builders in Tampa and the metro or the area surrounding Tampa, the home builders went crazy. So they built all these homes. So inventory has really exploded all over Florida. And then the hurricane came and wiped these kids out. You know, they bought a home for $600,000 in Tampa, and then they probably put $100,000 to $150,000 into renovating it. They put new floors, they put new tile, drywall, paint. They really made the place look good. So they're probably in the whole $700,000 on this thing. And they tried to rent it out. They couldn't rent it out. They lowered the price, couldn't rent it out. And then the hurricane came and, man, wiped those kids out. So they're in the whole $700,000, and that same house is on the market today. Obviously, the house was in default. It was there was a short sale. It's on the market today for like $450,000. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, could you imagine being that kid who sold his house in California for $1 million, took all the money and went to Tampa, and thought that home prices could never go down and inventory would never explode, and this only goes up. Man, I would never want to be in that situation. So anyways, I really like talking about those types of things. It's very fascinating to me to learn about interest rates and the business cycle and stuff like that. So when I found this guy, Adam Taggart, and nickgerli talking about how the inventory in Texas, in Tennessee, in Florida, Arizona, Georgia, basically all of the South has increased, just literally skyrocketed. He was saying that in the South, there's over 300,000 homes on the market for sale today, which is the highest level ever, even higher than the 2006 bubble. And what's crazy about that is you don't hear that on the mainstream media. Like, all you hear is there's a housing shortage, and nationally home prices are still up and inventory is still really low. And this kid makes an example of the South, talking about how the days on the market has just exploded, inventory has exploded, at the same time that we're starting to see the unemployment rate tick up, and we're starting to see more and more delinquencies in the credit card industry and also in the automotive industry. And I'm seeing it myself, being in the truck driving industry. Freight's slowed down too. It's definitely slowed down. So, and being a 34-year-old man who's interested in potentially in the next couple of years or whatever, trying to purchase my own home, these types of things are very fascinating to me. And I'm trying to inform myself as much as I can about interest rates and the business cycle and the delinquency rate. Why is the delinquency rate going up? Why is the unemployment rate going up? Why is the bankruptcy rate the highest level since 2009? And in a weird way, I'm kind of hoping that there is a correction. I just don't want to I want the unemployment rate to go from 4.6% to 10%. And I think a lot of kids my age do, or young men or young women, whomever, whatever, young people, they kind of want that. Because that's really what they need. When you factor in higher home prices, the higher cost of living, the higher tax expenses, and the cost to borrow money with interest rates being as high as they are today, at the end of the day, you really need the price of everything to go down. That's what people really need. But unfortunately, what comes with that is probably a lot of pain and a lot of unemployment. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. There was another instance where he was talking about how Austin, Texas in particular, from 2022 up until today, home prices are down 20%. 20%. You don't hear about that on the media, from the media, I guess. It's like they're being very selective with what they choose to talk about, and the only logical explanation why I can, come up, why wouldn't they talk about something like that? Is man, if they opened up their mouth on that topic about home prices being down 20% in Austin, what would that do to the local people in Austin? Would that really open up their eyes to, man, we got a problem here? And so many kids, they left California and New York City and they went to Austin. They followed Joe Rogan and they went out there and they were hoping that home prices would just go up. There's going to be a brighter future. My tax burden's going to go down. And that's what they did. They bought a home in Austin, Texas for $600,000 when pre-pandemic it was $4 or $350 or $3. you know, because they had all this extra money. They could go out to Texas and, you know, drive up home prices crazy. But now we're starting to see a pretty big downturn in home prices, and in Austin in particular. Obviously, like, these are just generalities that I'm talking about, because nationally home prices are still up. So, and inventory nationally is still pretty low. But could you imagine being the kid who left California to go to Austin and bought a house for 600 grand that was 400 pre-pandemic, and now you lose your job and the value of your home is down 20%? Like, what do you do? What do you do? What if you have a family? What if you have kids? What if you, and then you either, you know, you lose your job, or let's say that kid was working remotely from California. He's in Austin, but he's based in California, right? It's like some tech kid or something like that, playing on a computer all day. What do you do if that company calls you back into the office? Hey, bro, we need you to come back into the office for at least 4 days a week, but you bought a home in Texas, and now the value of your home's down 20%. Kind of makes you wonder if the economy is doing as well as it's portrayed to be in the media. And me being a truck driver, I see it firsthand, especially in California. There's still a lot of work. It's not super slow, but I have a lot of friends in the construction industry, and they're being laid off too. They really are. They're reducing their hours. They're reducing their workload. Business is starting to slow down. I'm seeing it. So, and if the unemployment rate really does go up, what's going to happen to automotive loans? What's going to happen to credit card loans? And you know, those are all going up. So I guess we'll see. I don't know. I just wanted to share with you guys some of my thoughts about that, because to me, it's really fascinating. I love to listen to those types of things. It's very informative. And, you know, like I said earlier, being the age where I'm trying to, in the near future, purchase my first home, gaining as much information and knowledge on these topics is imperative. Like, I need it. The more information that I can absorb, the better. So I just wanted to share my thoughts with you guys. And that's it. I mean, I'll see you next time. I'll talk to you later. See you later.